Contestant number 2, Keyleth of the Ereshari. She's a druid, but it turns out she's been a plant all along. On the release of the first 3 episodes of the Legend of Vox Machina, we created a video exploring our initial thoughts on the premiere of this eagerly anticipated series, one that I actually backed on Kickstarter. Look, here's Trinket. For my thoughts on the opening few episodes of The Legend of Vox Machina, check out this video on the channel. A link should be popping up on the screen right now. But now we're about to dive into the entirety of the first season of The Legend of Vox Machina from the perspective of someone who helped bring the show to life. If you're also a Kickstarter backer, sound off in the comments. Do you think the show is everything you hoped it would be? Or is it a disappointment? Don't forget to respect everyone else's opinion. This commentary is going to be a bit more fun and loose than my previous one. Let me know what you think. Of course, this video will have spoilers for the entirety of Season 1, so don't watch this unless you've watched the whole series. Let's get started. Episodes 1 to 3. Now that the first 3 episodes have been out for a while, I can talk about them a little more thoroughly. These first 3 episodes, Terror of Tal'Dorei Parts 1 and 2 and The Feast of the Realms, do a wonderful job at setting up the show before we really get into this first main arc, the Briarwood arc. The Briarwood arc is brought to life extremely well, and I can't wait to delve a little deeper into that with you. First off, I think it's interesting to include a point that was reported on by Polygon.com. It's that Matt Mercer saw The Legend of Vox Machina as a chance to perfect the original campaign and fix anything he didn't quite stand by anymore. It is wild to me that this show was the product of collective storytelling, but at the same time, I think it might be the way forward. With the main storyline itself being plotted out by a GM and the interactions of the characters themselves being improvised in the moment and then later improved upon, it's a recipe for success in my opinion. With such a natural framework, nothing feels forced. It feels like each plot point flows into the next. The barb roll itself is a great method of introducing the characters one by one. Percy is obviously above it all, but gets dragged in anyway. Grog wakes up every morning praying for a fight, and is ever jovial about his role in the team. Vex is the smooth talker, as well as a skilled fighter. She and Vax always have each other's backs. Vax himself is a lovable scoundrel, and works behind the scenes as his sister distracts. Keyleth just wants to have a nice time with her friends, and is an innocent little bean. Pike has her friends back, sometimes to their detriment, and Scanlan is too busy banging to be of use. He has his priorities. Vox Machina are unlikely heroes who everyone seems to underestimate. This can be a little hard to believe at times. We can see this being the case when they approach the Council of Tal'Dorei, disheveled and hungover, but when they're not in that state, there's no reason to doubt them. They have a holy woman scarred from battle, a highly trained bear, a man who wields a weapon heretofore unseen, and a giant guy. What part of that says should be underestimated? However, the start of their hero's journey is framed well, with the initial dragon arc showing how they have gone from a crushing defeat to a well-earned victory. Once they are prepared and armed with information, though they don't initially understand it, they take on their enemy again successfully. This is then mirrored later on in the series with the Briarwoods. We get to see Vox Machina at their lowest moment, contemplating running away from their responsibilities because they think they're just not good enough to face them. What turns them around isn't the promise of fame and fortune that they were looking for when they initially took on the job. It's the sight of the town razed to the ground by the dragon, people who they were just talking to now dead in a flash. It could be read that they don't actually care about the situation until it's something that affects them directly, but the fact that they don't actually know these people reaffirms that they are facing this dragon down for the right reasons. It's the first truly selfless thing we have seen them do, and it reassures the audience that these are actually our heroes. Watching episode 2 in retrospect, knowing that General Krieg is in fact the dragon that lays waste not only to the outskirts of Iman, but to his own army that he kills ruthlessly, it gave me a little chill. After he gives them a rousing speech, no less. I will reiterate a point that I made in my first video, that Gilmore is the character that keeps on giving in this show. Every time he's on screen, I want more of him, which was exactly how I felt when watching the web series itself. If anything, the TV series cranks it up to 10, with the addition of his charming shop filled with delightful curios. This man knows his stuff, and he is one of the reasons why Vox Machina succeeds as well as they do. When Vox Machina actually finds the dragon's hoard, I love that Vex is so blinded by her love of money that she straight up forgets that this obviously belongs to her favoured foe. Come on, Vex! We are hit with the first big reveal of the series when General Krieg is shown to actually be the blue dragon that is plaguing the land. Great life hack for dragons. Stand behind the most stereotypically evil-looking guy in the room. No one will suspect a thing. This reveal slaps, even if we've probably figured it out by now. There was still a part of me that thought it might be that General Krieg worked for the dragon, at least, so there was a smidge of doubt in my mind. The battle between Vox Machina and the dragon is pretty dang cool as well. Figuring out how they can beat the dragon, making a clever plan, and having it come together. Vax's awesome slide on the dragon's neck and Grog splitting its head in two is rad. Even though, if I'm thinking of the rules of 5e D&D, a dragon failing an intelligence save like that against Major Image would be quite spectacular to pull off. Regardless, the scene is satisfying and engaging to watch. The dragon arc isn't actually in the web series, and it's able to include the viewer in this arc in the show, which is pretty cool. When Vox Machina return triumphant, they are given a hero's welcome and the keys to their brand new keep. Now the protectors of Iman. Episode 3 is the beginning of the Briarwood arc of the show, and we dive straight into a big old pool of Percy trauma. Our gun-toting noble suffers from recurring dreams in which he relives the slaughter of his family. Perhaps this is triggered by living in a stone keep with his new little adventure family, or maybe it's even because he senses the Briarwoods are reaching the city. Either way, he wakes up with his Dr. Murder mask hung up all nicely on the wall beside him and goes for a nighttime wander. I have to mention that this mask is very clearly hung up here, so it needs somewhere to go, but also Percy tends to pull it out of thin air most of the time. Demon magic? I don't know. Someone on Twitter said that Percy's sad boy aesthetic is too powerful for even Vex in a robe to reach him. Lady Allura arrives to tell the group that there will be a banquet to introduce them to the realm, and I cannot believe they reduced her to a messenger when she's so powerful that she could probably summon the entirety of Vox Machina to her chambers, give them the news, and then drop them at home in a matter of seconds. Very powerful wizard. Percy is looking forward to a night of decorum, which is honestly ridiculous. Get a life, Percy. Maybe not by checking them off your gun list. We are once again reminded that Vox Machina is not like the other adventurers when they arrive at this fancy ball. A pick-me party, if you will. Scanlan is way more sexually fluid in the show than he was in the web series, and I love that for him. He's living his best bi life. Okay, so I know that Percy is racked with trauma when he sees Lord and Lady Briarwood strolling into the ballroom for the first time, but this shot makes him look like he's excited to see the 73962 Dick My Butt train. We see Lady Kima fleetingly in this event, but not nearly enough. Lady Kima is a fantastic character, and she's also played by Stephanie Beatrice, and I need more of her. The scene was one of the first ones in which I realized what I had seen in the web series was being shown in the series, and it was such a rush. I've seen so many side-by-side comparison videos online of the web series and the TV series, and it's fascinating to watch. Percy coming face to face with his tormentors after all this time is handled well. Except for Dick My Butt. We see for the first time exactly how the Briarwoods have managed to keep such a firm grip on Whitestone, thanks to Silas Briarwood's ability to control others. This is what dissuades Uriel from sending over some troops to see exactly what's going on in Whitestone, and what makes him so protective over it, and the Briarwoods later on. Vax is sleuthing his way through Silas and Delilah's room, while everyone else is dieting, putting his rogue skills to good use. Throughout the series, Percy's glasses do the anime intensity thing, and it's so funny, I love it. The Briarwoods are, honestly, a little too cocky, moseying past mirrors without a reflection like it's not an issue. They eventually find Vax in their room, and there's a lot of tension. Both the threat of violence, but also flirty tension. This is also not the first time that Vax will fall under their control, and hot take, I think he's just letting it happen. Our bi mess has disadvantage on saving throws against attractive couples. While on the brink of death, Vax's team rushes to his aid, with mentioning that he is thinking about not only his closest family member here, Vex, but also Keyleth. This is something I alluded to in the last video I put out on Vox Machina. But now I need everyone to know that Keyleth was going to be the last thing that Vax thought about before he died. We then have Vox Machina versus the Briarwoods round 1. We are once again seeing the initial dragon fight unfold again, which isn't bad by any means. The failed fight before coming back later on better than ever before, and defeating them is great, it's a good trope. It also gives us a chance to see exactly what the Briarwoods are capable of. It's a lot. They're capable of a lot. Percy goes ham on an innocent driver and we get to see his dark passenger for the first time. Episodes 4 to 6. We are now fully into the Briarwood arc and majorly aware of the threat they pose. Vox Machina are placed under house arrest for battling with them. This was the lesser alternative, as a mind-controlled Uriel wanted to put them in jail. Our girl Allura managed to pull some strings though. We do not deserve her. Before Vax was mercilessly beaten by the Briarwoods, he did manage to nab their very spooky book. It's great that Scallon is the one who identifies this book as key and tries to decipher it. He doesn't really get enough credit for being as clever as he is. Percy finally opens up to Vox Machina about the trouble he had with the Briarwoods, and it's a nice moment of growth for him, along with the twins deciding not to run away and cut their losses. We also get a lovely moment of bonding between Percy and Keyleth, where Keyleth lets him know that he's not alone and, you know, he's not the only person who has suffered. I know Percy saw his family killed and was tortured, but Grog was left for dead by his family. Vex and Vax saw their mother killed. Everyone's got their own stuff, you know? Delilah sends over some gross ghosties that can't be hit, but they can sure as heck hit other people. They are shown to be an extreme threat, something that no one is prepared for. The Grosties break in and make everyone cry while they're wearing way too much mascara. I kid, of course. They are very, very dangerous, and ever since Pike was five-finger death punched by Delilah, she can't seem to summon her divine powers. This leaves the only other source of light in the room, our MVP, Keyleth, to pull herself together and cast what we assume is the Sunbeam spell for the first time. Go Kiki! Despite very clearly needing the whole party to succeed, Percy tries to leave and head to defeat the Briarwoods by himself. Good luck, Perce. Eventually the rest of the team convinces him to let them join him, all except for Pike, who is worried she won't be able to be of use and stays behind. Which was due to Ashley Johnson's other filming commitments in the web series, but is tied into the story nicely here. Even if Pike had decided not to join them because it was all a bit too much, I wouldn't have blamed him. Pike bestows the role of Sun Queen to Keyleth. That reminds me of my first ever D&D character, who was a rogue called Sunbeam the Destroyer, of the Noble Destroyer clan. Probably. I don't know. Also, this scene made me weep. Pike and Grog's friendship is simply too pure. The next episode opens with some of the team heading over to steal from my man Gilmore, which is extremely rude. I know they're in a hurry to get out of the city before they are captured and put under house arrest again, but respect my man. Vax and Gilmore engage in some flirty banter, but Gilmore spots the affection Vax has for Keyleth with what I presume was an insight check with a very low DC. Armed with the proper supplies thanks to Gilmore, they are able to head off to face the Briarwoods. While on the journey to face them, Scanlan, still trying his best to decipher Delilah's spooky tome, is able to get a translation from Keyleth, giving us the chance to see that Keyleth does in fact know her stuff. Delilah once again sends some beasts after the party, and in order to escape from Vox Machina, they just hurl some innocent horses off the side of a cliff? Come on! With innocent lives lost, and the supplies lost too, Delilah's book is retrieved by the beasts. Then we are shown a horrific scene in which the Briarwoods invite a family into their castle, with the cutest little kid you've ever seen asking if they've won a prize. But the prize is death! This is clearly supposed to reaffirm that the Briarwoods are ruthless, but did they have to go that hard? No! Yeah. Pike heads to the Temple of the Everlight to find out why her connection has been severed. I love actually seeing her struggle in the show instead of just mourning the fact that Ashley isn't there like we had to when watching the web series. Meanwhile, Vox Machina are exchanging stories about their greatest kills, and in a scene that had me cackling, Keyleth is shown to have accidentally gruesomely murdered someone as she begs them to go to sleep. Despite this wild story, Vax still finds himself enchanted by the other half-elf. Somehow. Vex warns him not to get too involved in a romantic relationship, but she is clearly struggling with not having him all to herself now, having grown up with it just being the two of them. The party arrives in Whitestone to find bodies made up to look just like them hanging from a huge dead tree. A warning. This includes the little girl from before. This is a bad prize! Next, we are introduced to the rebellion against the Briarwoods, led by Archibald, a dwarf who was a friend of Percy's when they were children. I do wish we had seen a flashback of them goofing around together to help us accept their bond a little bit more quickly, but it's fine. We also meet Keeper Yennon, a cleric of Arathis, who helps lift the spirits of those under the rule of the Briarwoods in Whitestone, which is no easy task. As we know, there has been no intervention from outside of Whitestone's walls, thanks to Silas's penchant for mind-controlling anyone who dares to suggest taking a look inside. With the help of a rebellion, Vox Machina finds themselves in a safe house, one without ale, to Grog's dismay. There we are reminded of just how detrimental it is to the party that Cleric Pike is not with them. This kind of thing is exactly what clerics are built for. You gone undead? You need a cleric! Pike is still struggling at the Temple of the Everlight, however. Archibald is currently suffering at the hands of his captors, and it's up to Vox Machina to free him so that he can lead. Percy is looking for someone else to lead so that he doesn't have to, but that doesn't work out for him in the end. Speaking of Archie, he was completely redesigned for the show, having previously been an old man who advised Percy's father prior to the Briarwoods taking over. After struggling with some doors and Vex struggling with Keyleth's need to free the people being held prisoner, they march on. I'm not quite sure why Vex wouldn't want additional people on this excursion with them, apart from maybe them being less stealthy. Every other ally they have proves to be handy when they are confronted by Captain Stonefell and his guard while trying to break Archie out. In this gory battle, Scanlan ends up being partially responsible for the fall of one of the rebels, which seems to be a theme going forward. He's just so charismatic, you know. It's in this... Can you hear that? It's in the scene that No Mercy Percy appears, taking his chance to get his first glimpse of vengeance by taking out Stonefell and removing the first name from his list of enemies that is etched rather magically onto the side of his gun. I get major warlock vibes from this little arrangement between him and the demon clearly inhabiting his body. Maybe a lesser warlock? I don't know. Either way, this entity obviously gives Percy power in exchange for these names. It takes over him so completely that he even ends up pointing his gun at Vax, which is just the start of their worries when it comes to this nefarious connection. It is also in this episode that we find out that Cassandra de Rollo, Percy's little sister, has been taken by the Briarwoods and is still alive, which is such a lovely bit of storytelling that raises the stakes up even higher. I love it. Episodes 7 to 9. Episode 7, Scanbo, is a work of art. I feel like it perfectly captures the ways in which D&D players can get through an encounter by the seat of their pants. Before we get into that though, we find out more about Cassandra and Percy's relationship, as well as more on their tutor Professor Anders. Anders is obsessed with residuum, a mineral which amplifies the arcane properties of various other items. Professor Anders was held back by the de Rollo family and wasn't allowed to throw himself into the production of residuum. Might I just say that I cannot believe they didn't get bad vibes from Anders before the betrayal? This man wants these kids to suffer? Percy delves into his past again, how he got to where he is, how the Briarwoods and various other characters wronged him, and how he created his gun. My question is, did he create the gun, or did the demon inside him create the gun? People keep saying how brilliant he is, but it was the demon that gave him the schematic, right? I don't know. Keyleth also sees that the Sun Tree is suffering along with the people of Whitestone and tries to burn everything down. Well, she tries to give it some sunlight and it backfires on her, and Vex gets super mad at her about it. It's a shame because Percy has been doing all sorts of wild and risky stuff, but of course Vex doesn't call him out on it. The entire sequence of Scanlan infiltrating the guards is fantastic, except for how he finds Duke Vedmire on the toilet. That was simply too much for me now. How Scanlan manages to get through this encounter isn't too dissimilar from the web series at all, which makes it even funnier, including the dinosaur rampaging throughout the house. Scanlan gets the chance to prove his worth to the other members of the party and himself in a way. It's also so gratifying to see this tiny little gnome blast this gloating Goliath, via the crotch no less. This episode is rounded off by Anders basically damning himself by cutting Cassandra's throat right in front of Percy. We pick up from there in the next episode, and for a professor, this man is an idiot. He kills the man's sister and then runs out of the room saying what is basically like a yo mama joke. What are you doing? It doesn't seem like Cass is going to pull through, even though Keyleth spat on some dirt. I'm just kidding. I love that Keyleth needed to use spell components to make this work, and that Vax was able to learn from her too. It's just very funny to see it on screen. Just as funny is how Keyleth and Cass scream at each other, Cass surprised to be alive, and Keyleth surprised that she revived her. Anders takes on Vox Machina with a little something he was given by the Briarwoods. More mind control! Thanks to the silver tongue flopping around in his mouth. This imagery is so bad, but I know that's the point. The rest of Percy's party gets taken over by this man. That's fine. Except that I have to assume that there's some kind of wisdom save involved, and Keyleth is a druid, and like, maybe it was a natural one? Maybe? I don't know. Percy's trick shot to shoot Anders' mouth clean off is a sight to behold, and, well, so is the tongue screwing around on the floor like a wet little worm. Awful. Percy manages to cross Anders off of his list, and it's handy that Keyleth was able to revive Cassandra because seeing that she is alive is the only thing that's able to get him out of his bloodlust. Brother and sister are reunited and it's very sweet. Keyleth uses skywriting to let everyone in Whitestone know that the rebellion is in full swing. This also informs Silas and Delilah that another one of their minions has fallen, and so Delilah does what she does best. Necromancy! This time she's raising the dead, and it turns out there are a lot of corpses in Whitestone. Maybe that's why Silas and Delilah are so trigger happy, because like they needed more bodies for their zombie army. With all of these undead around, there's only one woman we can turn to. It's Pike Trickfoot. But she's currently miles away in the Temple of the Everlight, trying to make amends with her god. Now, this whole thing with the Everlight. Yes, Pike can absolutely feel torn between her destiny with her temple and with her friends, but I'm not sure why that's breaking her connection with the Everlight. I know we needed something to sever the connection between her and her god, just enough so that she could come back better than ever before, but I'm not sure this was it. I'd have even been happier if it was the necromantic power causing a disturbance with her magic and her doing something to find herself in battle. Maybe she rushes to Grog's aid even though she has no magic, and that triggers her powers again. But I know that she had to have her powers to astral project and to be with them in Whitestone, and yeah. It's still pretty good, and Pike's arrival is really dope, but still. Scanlan is the first person to discover the horde of zombies, and there's a very funny misunderstanding between Scanlan and Vex. Wordplay. The next episode gives us a massive "I broke the world for us" thing, as we discover that Delilah basically sold her soul to bring Silas back and have her necromancy as well. A nice 2-for-1 deal. I have to think though, we don't know much about Silas except that he's in love with Delilah and is really buff and almost died one time. Why is Delilah so head over heels for him? Because he's buff? Is that it, Delilah? As the gang is being chased down by zombies, there's a moment in which Cassandra launches a zombie off of herself with a bicycle kick, and I may be wrong, but it seems as though they tried to make her more of a fighter than she was in the web series. It's a change I really enjoyed. She's capable and just as skilled as Percy. Maybe more, seeing as she can manage even without a tiny cannon. There are a bunch of Vax and Keyleth moments in this episode, building up to his declaration of love, and I know it had to be shown more for the sake of getting their love story across in a TV series, but it does seem like Vax is doing a lot more chasing this time. A lot of the time, it's accompanied by Keyleth looking away or looking down, and I'm not sure if they're going for something different in the TV series, but Keyleth seems more uncomfortable. This is probably because Kiki isn't used to affection, but it can also make her seem like she's not into it, so it's a tough balancing act to manage. Scanlan gets bit in this episode and is suitably panicked. Watching it back, Scanlan is definitely the group's damsel in distress, and it's cool that the role isn't pushed on someone like Keyleth or Vex. We get to see Percy's sniper rifle Bad News in this episode, and it takes down a whole giant. Bad News is the best name for a gun, by the way, let it be known. Unfortunately though, this is the last time it gets used in the series. I guess it's just to show that Percy's going to be even more of a threat in the next season. Scanlan is in peril again, and as with the last time, it's going to cost someone big time. The only survivors of Scanlan's penchant for danger are Cassandra and Pike, so far. This time, it's Archibald that suffers the consequences of defending our beloved bard. This man gets fully sliced in half. Torso just slips off of his leggies. It's a sudden and jarring way for this lovable character we just rescued to have to go, but of course it needed to happen so that Percy could step up as a leader. What was the point of rescuing Archie in the first place? Vex and Percy are meant for each other because they both manage to shrug off other people's grief in this series like it's no big deal. They're dead, get over it. At least in Vex's case, they were in the middle of a battle, so. Of course, Percy steps up to the plate and makes his speech with a sword raised, even though it should probably have just been a gun raised or something, I don't know. And then we have an adorable moment in which Vax confesses his love to Keyleth. They almost share a kiss, and then Keyleth pulls away, doing the classic, "You tell me this now?" shtick. Yes, he's telling you now. He thinks you're all going to die. Come on, Keyleth, like, look at this sad little face. Just when hope seems lost, Pike just wallops him. She arrives seemingly extremely overpowered and astral projecting, and I get that a cleric is going to turn the tide, but this is something else. She went up to level 20, like, all of a sudden. Either way, I'm not complaining, our girl is smashing it. Grog's angry mumbling while he chops down his giant is really, really funny. Venemeyer tries to run away as he sees the tide is turning, and the people of Whitestone have their revenge. Not sure why he wasn't on Percy's list though, like he's awful. Maybe it's because he turned up later on? This episode wraps up with the party bumping into someone in the dungeon, someone familiar to Percy, another name on his list. Anna Ripley looks worse for wear and is apparently no friend of the Briarwoods. Even though the last time Percy saw her, she was most definitely on their side and was torturing him to within an inch of his life. He is immediately out for blood. In this episode, titled Depth of Deceit, we can surmise that someone is going to turn on the party, but who could it be? Contestant number 1, Dr. Anna Ripley, interrogator and inventor, but her other eyes are only for you. Contestant number 2, Keyleth of the Ereshari. She's a druid, but it turns out she's been a plant all along. Or contestant number 3, Cassandra DeRollo. She may have been abandoned by her brother, but you and her will be together forever. We'll find out later on in the episode. You probably already know, but let me have this, please. I'm having fun. So Cass stops her brother from shooting Dr. Ripley's face off, and they decide that she could be a valuable ally or captive. Pike, Scanlan, and Keyleth hold a mini intervention for Percy, and they find out that his dark passenger is getting spicy and should really be taken care of. Percy says it's fine when it's not fine. I'm not sure why everyone is just listening to him at this point. Like, something's going on. As they progress into the Briarwoods domain, Dr. Ripley does her best to prove herself to Vox Machina by saving Percy from caltrops and acid and whatever, but Percy still doesn't trust her. Which is fair. I really don't know why I like Ripley so much. She is awful. As the group investigates a chamber meant to mine residuum, we see one of my favorite moments in the entire series, the addition of someone else to the list. Did you guess correctly? Dr. Ripley, Keyleth, or Cass, contestants 1, 2, or 3. It's contestants number 3. It's Cass. Her name goes up with the grates on Percy's gun as she betrays the party. Her reasoning behind it is that her brother left her for dead, and if this had been all there was to it, I'd have respected her reasoning on that alone. Maybe if he'd gone back for her, they would have both escaped. I'd be mad too. Vax gets put under Silas's spell again, and I'm telling you, he's doing it on purpose. The man has luck points. He has luck points, for goodness sake. A distraught Vex and a catatonic Percy are left in rapidly rising acid with the rest of the party. I really enjoyed the scene, seeing everyone try everything they can to resolve the issue, pulling Percy from the brink again. Grog jumps into the acid in order to pull the lever needed simultaneously with Percy and Ripley. I'm surprised Grog got the timing right actually, with it being Grog and with it being underwater and like a lot of other factors. All I could think about was how this would have been the perfect job for my water Ganassi who has a swim speed and is resistant to acid damage, and never mind. One of the funniest lines in the season for me is Grog sheepishly saying, "Forgot my drawers." We're finally at the ziggurat, and it looks like Vax is going to get sacrificed. Ripley takes a chance to bail on out of the situation, and I can't really say I blame her. It's also clever that she does so when they're trying to avoid detection. She's clever, that Ripley. I don't know why I like her so much. In the wake of her escape, Percy's demon is super angry, and it demands that they confront the Briarwoods, but Cassandra isn't about to let you hurt her family, Percy. This entire episode is basically one big fight with the Briarwoods, plus a few remember who you are moments to get Vax and Cass back on side. The brother-sister smackdown is happening, folks. Ding, ding, ding. I am a sucker for when a character is under a spell and they have to be brought back to the right side. I'm a simple woman with simple pleasures. Grog gets knocked out immediately because he's too powerful and needs a timeout. Keyleth gets walloped by Silas very quickly, but tries her best to protect her friend. Pike's fight with Silas is beautiful, one of my favorite combat moments in the series. Pike is so powerful that she can easily take on a Briarwood. Percy fences with Cassandra using his gun. It's very funny. He also has to fight against the demon inside himself to save Cass, and in the midst of this, it is very clear that Cass has been put under Silas's spell. She's not in control. The final line of defense here is our girl Kiki, who gains the support of Whitestone's Sun Tree to amplify his Sunbeam spell, giving the party the upper hand. Vax comes out of his stupor, and his moment with Vex is very sweet. Grog is up and fighting Silas for the second time in the series. He passes his wisdom saving throw against seduction. Pike saves her Scanlan in distress, and Keyleth burns Silas to a crisp. Delilah is terrible, but also poor Delilah. I broke the world for us! She ends up completing the ritual for the Whispered One, but with no blood sacrifice. I have to assume that's why it didn't quite work out as potently as she wanted. Now, here's the thing. Indulge me for like just a second. Keyleth sacrifices herself for Vex, and this is possibly just gals being pals. And I know who ends up with who in the web series, but all I'm saying is that it's pretty flirty. This web series makes me ship everyone with everyone, and that's not my fault. We're here in the series finale, and Keyleth is moments away from death, and Pike's astral projection has been interrupted, and she's disappeared. As much as they try to bring Keyleth back, nothing magical seems to be reaching her thanks to the suspicious-looking orb that Delilah summoned. Delilah is dragged out by her hair, which is just the beginning of how much she gets thrown around in this episode. Keyleth appears to be gone, but thanks to Vax learning from Keyleth before, he's able to mimic the way she saved Cassandra. No mercy Percy goes off the deep end, and this is where we properly meet the demon Orthax. The imagery of this demon is pretty terrifying, and I love it. Everyone works together to keep Percy from killing Delilah and fueling Orthax even further. The sequence in which Percy creates his gun with the help of a demon is honestly the best depiction of wielding a gun that I've seen in media. Those things are scary and dangerous, and a demonic gift, if I've ever seen one. Percy's battle with himself, aided by his friends, is a lovely wrap-up to the season, but I'm not sure why shooting himself in the hand banished the demon for the time being. Maybe if it was like his right hand, his shooting hand, it would have made a little more sense. I don't know. It's very fitting that Cassandra was the one who got to finish off Delilah. She deserved to be the one to do so, as she had suffered continuously at the hands of the Briarwoods. Good for you, girl. Scanlan throwing away Percy's gun into the acid was one of my favourite parts of the campaign in the web series, and it's very funny here. Vox Machina emerges from the ziggurat, victorious and being heralded as heroes. Once again, indulge me. There is no heterosexual explanation for this. Vox Machina heads back home, the Briarwoods defeated, but a new threat is right at their doorstep. Or up in the sky, above their doorstep. It's, you know, like, it's around. So this show made me adore Keyleth. She blossomed, drew a pun, much more vividly than she was given a fair shake to do in the web series, and she had much more screen time. I've gone from not really liking Keyleth in the web series to seeing Marisha play Bo in Campaign 2 and realizing Marisha is one of the most talented role players I've ever seen, to watching the show and fully seeing Keyleth for the first time. I just think it's really cool. Thank you so much for watching my silly video on Season 1 of The Legend of Vox Machina. If you enjoy, please like and think about subscribing so that we know you want to see more of this content in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and have a bidet. I did the exact same thing in my other video, but I really like doing it. Bidet.